All right, we're gonna kick it off back to the plantation and the bandits. I'm gonna share back to the screen. Sorry, bro.
Good.
All right, here we go. So I guess what Snyder might have deemed the matchup of the week. I think this is a pretty clear cut, very very decisive pick out of both of us last week after we kind of analyzed it. I just think there was just too many horses in the shed for bandits. Just having a few guys on by. So I'm going to go. I'll take the Bandits team real quick. So I mean, a tough performance. I mean, tough matchup against the Eagles there. Um, just didn't really do much. Not a lot of passing yards. Just one score and an interception. So kind of just a rough week for him, which I think most people anticipated a lot of points. They end up only scoring 17. So yeah, tough. Tough treading there. Philly looked good. They were home in a big night game, so good on him. I think this is the big highlight. Just in the offense in general, he had only 4 targets, 1 catch for 5 yards. Ridley. He had a couple nice performances for sure, but he's definitely had some duds. He had the worst game of his season. Um, Against New Orleans this week. So yeah, it seems that Christian Kirk has been the steady play in that Jags offense, and I think they're starting to get to life. So it's kind of hard to see that they won and scored 31 points, and Ridley only did this. So credit to ETN, credit to Trevor Lawrence, and then Christian Kirk's been a really good cog. I mean, they score a late touchdown there as well. Um, for him to get some points. So yeah, I think it's a disappointing to see Ridley with the potential that he has, putting up less than 2. So yeah, tough for the Bandits there. Olave continues to really be a double-digit guy. Gets 12, pretty much the same projections that he was anticipated. Besides, just the one dead week, but overall, double digits every week. So really, really steady cog there. Just after that trade. Javante, I mean, hey, play any guy against the Packers, they stink. So he gets 12. Just 80, steady. I feel like he looked dangerous, even though he shouldn't be on a couple of those rushes. I'm going to skip Justice Hill. That was just kind of a flyer play for him. Hawkinson, I think that's the real thing that we've kind of thought of. I mean, he gets 11 catches for 86 yards. We had 12 targets, so his highest target total, which we anticipated with Jefferson going down. So yeah, I mean, really nothing much that the Bandits could do here. I mean, you have Jamar Chase on the bench. In terms of buys, I would say, Tony Pollard was on buy. Even his running back 2 at that point, I think he would probably play one of the Carolina guys over Javante. So yeah, tough treading against a team that has a couple horses on the other end. I'll let you take the plantation over and kind of run down his team, which puts up 141, highest point total of the week.
Yeah, no, Dre really put a stamp on things. Going against obviously a great team in the Bandits, like you said, like you touched on. Yeah, Jamar Chase, no Tony Pollard, no Jamar Chase. So I like to see how the teams would match up if there's no buys and everyone's healthy. And I think it would be obviously a really close matchup. I think both teams could easily hit the same benchmark again, like 140, and like Bandits could easily hit 130, 140 with the team that he has at full strength, but the same time, this is what it is. So Jalen Hurts, obviously, with a great game. Tyreek, despite the fact that Miami, only scored 17, he just goes to show you that he is just an
Unguardable.
animal. It really is, and it's just ridiculous at this point. I don't understand why the Chiefs got rid of him. They still won a Super Bowl despite that fact. So it's crazy how they got rid of him.
Yeah.
I mean, Tyreek Hill. I mean, I feel like it's just you can't guard the guy. I mean, I know it says he's questionable, but I mean, it looks like he's going to play next week, so he should be fine. But just to backtrack, to go back into this matchup, I mean, he gets 21 points from Jonathan Taylor. Can we say he's
back.
officially back? Yeah, exactly. Taylor is back. I feel like this is
18.
what we should expect from him for the rest of the season. I mean, 18 to 20 carries. They're gonna. I mean, as long as he stays healthy, the sky's the limit for Mr. JT. So, they did a great job. And then Darren Waller, again, just 22 points as well. Like it just
Big
goes
game.
off. You kind of expected this at some point that he was going to like pick up the pace a little bit. I mean, I know. I mean, when you have Tyrod Taylor throwing you the ball and also Danny Jones, I mean, is it really going to be that great for the receiving core there? But you just proved that it doesn't matter who's throwing the ball. He's just an elite option at the tight end spot. So great job from him. Um, Going down the line, of course, he gets Deontay. He could even play Rasheed Rice. He has 17, but Deontay Johnson back from injury. He gets a cool 12 points. So, unfortunately, might have tweaked something, and maybe and in the game or at practice. So that remains to be seen. But he could just plug in Rasheed if he wants to, and go from there. So just hit on all cylinders. He was just on fire. So yeah, definitely a team to be reckoned with in the other league for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a really, really dangerous team in the other league. Snyder and I both projected this, like I said, as an easy one for Dre, and um, yeah, I thought he was just treading water, just waiting for Jonathan Taylor to come back. He gets Jonathan Taylor back. He scores 21. Starting to finally take over that backfield. I still don't think Zach Moss is going to go away, but um, they paid Taylor. Taylor's going to be the number one. Um, so the fact that he could tread water like he did and keep the record that he did prior to Taylor coming back last week is a testament to the rest of his team. He hit on Kyron Williams, like we mentioned. I really think hindsight again, but he really hits on the trade. I mean, he gets Godwin, who's been really, really steady. We're not even going to get into week 8 yet. Um, and Swift, who I think really solidifies a hole that he had with A Chain going down. Another guy that he hit on in the draft. So that's another cog coming back in another couple of weeks for Andre to add into this fold. Deontay coming back looked good. Unfortunate hamstring, little injury here that he needs to monitor. But depth wise, I think he looks really good. Another guy that could be a guy that I highlight on a PowerPoint here and there in the next couple months. But Rasheed Rice, guy that I really did not really know much about. Just kind of looking into flyer, rookies. A guy that Mahomes basically came up and said, "Hey, um, I want this guy for you to draft." In terms of KC and the front office, and they do. Um, just didn't really do much. The first week he looked okay, obviously scoring a touchdown. Um, I think this is maybe around the time I dropped him was week 2 or 3. But he really kind of looks like maybe the guy, the at least receiver spot that Mahomes trusts. So yeah, he hits on him for depth. Akers, you don't know in that backfield. So yeah, just a really solid team that's getting hot at the right time mid-season. We'll see how long it lasts, but I agree with you. I think Andy's going to be a team to be reckoned with for sure. Just based on roster and depth and some really big heavy guys that can score some points on a weekend passes. So yeah, really really good stuff. We might as well finish with the toilet bowl.
Ooh, say the best for last.
Yeah, I guess if you want to call it that. This would have been a fun. I do miss Snyder for this. This would have been a fun one to run down. Not fun one
Exactly.
to run down one. Just based off of score wise, this was easily the lowest scoring matchup of week 8. But I'm sorry, of week 7. But yeah, really, really pathetic performance. As I said, this matchup stunk when we were analyzing it last week. Um, I'll let you go with Snyder first. Actually, I'll finish for myself if that
Yeah.
works.
Oh, that makes sense, 100%. Yeah, so Snide with a much needed victory in a game where both managers, of course, they need the victory. They want to win. I mean, it's just like the loser is obviously going to be in last. And as we see here, Snyder, despite the fact that he gets the win, shouldn't feel too great about his performance. I mean, 82 points is just is a laughable number. But unfortunately, he gets the victory. So hey, a win's a win. So Train is got 2 wins now. I mean, he was backed by a crazy performance by Alvin Kamara. I mean, just 12 receptions, just peppering the guy with I mean, he peppered him and Olave with targets all game long. I mean, Derek Carr, who I think he sucks. I mean, that's it. But like at the same time, Alvin Kamara
Yes.
certainly not complaining about it. I mean, he's literally been insane. I mean, it's just crazy. 12 catches as you see there on the screen. Just not a good start for you to see that happen.
That
But
wasn't.
but then again, and then matchups are not won or lost on Thursday unless you have like three or four guys, and he just fortunately didn't really have any really big players go off. I mean, Gabe Davis only scores one, which was really puzzling. I mean, that game in general was puzzling that they lost to New England. He only gets one. Obviously bounced back this week, this Thursday. I mean, tonight. So we'll go through that obviously when we get to Week 8 previews. But yeah, despite the fact that like Kamara goes for 29, he plugs in Jeff Wilson Jr. He's been holding on to him all season. He started on the IR. He only gets one. I mean, I feel like you weren't going to see a big role for Jeff Wilson Jr. his first game back, number one. But as long as Mostert's there in front of him, and when a Chan comes back, but he's not going to need him. Hopefully for his sake, Montgomery comes back any second. I'm sure he's just chomping at the bit here to like plug him back in his lineup. I know we know how much he loves David Montgomery. So just as far as this week goes, he makes a big savvy move getting Darrell Henderson Jr. and he plugs him in, and it works out for him. He gets a touchdown, and he has 13 points. But despite that all, you would think that a team scores 82. And the opposite side, the other manager should be like, "Oh, this is great. He has 82. Let's go. We got this in the bag." But I'm going to kick it off to you because I'm sure this is not what you had in mind when you were going
Yeah.
into this matchup here. Unfortunately,
No, not at all. I mean, and just to highlight, I mean, unfortunately for him, he does have DK kind of being the questionable tag. Waiting to that 4 o'clock game. He had Henderson obviously too to play if he needed to. Just as a kind of a backup. DK gets the out, we'll say. Can't play. So he slides Henderson in, and just kind of how the way the league has worked with guys that are playing against me. I watch him score a tutty in that game, which sucked. Yeah, you weren't sure what the whole status of that backfield was going to be, and Henderson seemed to be the guy that they ran with for a week. I don't know what his status is going to be moving forward, but yeah, good play to him. Ends up panning out, scores a touchdown. But to your point, really didn't do much on his projections, 82 to 86. We're going to take it over to. I mean, is there a worse team in the league right now than Green Ball? I mean, they're record wise, no. It's been a dumpster fire year, unfortunately, for Green Ball. It's been tough. It's been tough treading. Hoping to get Cooper Cup healthy, maybe tread water a little bit, get to 1-3, which we did get to, hoping to be at least 500. And hopefully things would get better from there, and it hasn't by any means. I'm forced to play Jared Goff, who's been really consistent all year, really. I mean, his worst performance by far was unfortunately this week. Knew it was a tough matchup going into it. Didn't expect under 10. Just a tough outing. Baltimore ran up that score really early in the first half, which was kind of hopeful because they had to throw, but yeah, they didn't look like the Lions that we saw earlier in the season here. So yeah, unfortunate projection there. Yeah, I mean Puka Nacua, as we noted earlier, seemed to be the guy. Unfortunately, in that Rams game, Cooper Cup with a really big letdown performance. I mean, he had 7 targets, which isn't awful, and scored that 2-pointer late, but yeah, 2 catches for 29 yards. That's not what I anticipated from a guy that looked like he was kind of trending towards that 20 to 25. He obviously got close to 30 last week on a consistent week basis. So yeah, unfortunately, a down week for Cooper Cup, which Nakua, played a factor in, which I didn't really anticipate. I thought he was still going to hang around, which he has, but I thought Cooper was definitely going to be the number one. But they couldn't find the ball in this matchup. Based on that DK Metcalf news, I kept JSN in, which was the first time I played him all year, and he ends up scoring and having a really good game. Easily the best game of his season in his career, his first career touchdown. Looked the part of a guy that we kind of hopefully anticipated with this talent coming out of the draft. Crowded wide receiver room for sure. DK, Tyler Lockett's not to be forgotten. But yeah, just he hasn't really taken off in the first 6 weeks before this week. So happy to see that. That was my big bright spot. If you want to call any bit of scoring 67 points a bright spot, JSN was for sure the guy that I was happy to see perform. I don't know where that's going to go on a week to week basis, but happy there. Josh Jacobs, a huge letdown this week, 5. I mean, come on, man. You're at the Bears without Jimmy G. How is this team not leaning in on him more? He's got to be healthy at this point. He's got to be no rust. It's week 7. I mean, give the guy the appropriate touches here. He easily the worst week since the season.
Yeah.
He only gets 11 rushes for 35 yards. Only sees 4 targets, which is the second lowest of the season. He only gets 1 catch. 5 points was pathetic. Pacheco, pretty much my only bright spot besides Cooper Kupp coming back. Has been Pacheco. He's been super steady, double-digit performances pretty much the entire year.
Oh yeah,
and he's getting multiple rushes. Multiple rushes. He's getting passing work, which is nice to see. Scores on the catch. So yeah, I mean he's been the bright spot for sure as a 5th round pick or 6th round pick. I'm not sure exactly where I got him. I think 5th. Cole Kmet, 0. As you like to highlight the zeros, and I like to highlight them as well.
yeah.
Didn't expect much from the previous 2 that he put up last week without Justin Fields, but there's really not a lot of streaming options at tight end, and he's been relatively consistent outside of the last 2 weeks. So you kind of just roll the dice with him. The guy hasn't been terrible overall. I mean, he had a couple big weeks in a row, so you kind of got to ride it out. But yeah, 0's tough, and going into week 8 without Fields most likely again. Yeah, we're certainly looking for sure. And the big highlight here is really the dilemma. I mean, I wanted to play Cook, but hard to trust. I voiced my frustration last week, kind of on that situation of that backfield. Latavius Murray's getting work at the goal line, which we'll highlight again in week 8. So I don't play him. He ends up scoring on a receiving touchdown, which is basically at this point the only way he's going to score. I feel like they don't give him any work inside the 20 or 25-yard line. So,
Yep.
But yeah, Cook ends up scoring 19, which he's been pretty good. And again, I just say in a smash matchup, even with the questionable tags all week, this has really been the downfall of Green Bowl, is the loyalty to the Packers and the loyalty to Aaron Jones. I mean, this guy is killing my franchise. I mean, the first week, he essentially wins the game against Chicago, goes off, absolutely off, looks like a guy that we can rely on, looks like a guy that could be a great 1 or 2 running back, especially in a PPR league. Takes one to the house. I mean, looks great. And the Packers, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're slow playing him on purpose to keep him healthy for the year when they're not winning games and look atrocious on offense, or he's actually hurt, which I would have appreciated if they just put him on IR like Cooper Kupp, and I would have known for 4 weeks that he's just getting healthy and they'll come back and get the usage. I'm not sure what they're doing with him. I'm not sure if Matt LaFleur knows what the hell he's doing with him. And he's been absolutely killing my fantasy team because I know the potential's there. I know the consistency should be there and could be there, especially because he's such a good offensive weapon. He's easily the most explosive guy the Packers have. But they're not using him, and he's getting minimal work in a smash matchup against Denver. So it's been really frustrating trying to rely on him in the last 2 weeks, hoping that it was just a questionable tag and he might be the guy. But that wouldn't have really made much of a difference, unfortunately, in this matchup. Scoring 67 was nearly 40 points below my projection, which is absurd, by the way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, it's
it's
crazy.
terrible. Go ahead. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
terrible.
I was just wanted to piggyback off like that. Like basically, the analysis is great. Obviously, what you said, just like as a obviously it's probably the lowest point total of the year
I
as
think it
far as
is.
like yeah, all time. It's not all time. I actually looked that up. It's not of all time. I guess there was someone that scored 31 points in 2011. Sucka my dicka apparently had 31 points.
Not sure who that was. Might
So,
have been Aaron.
yeah, I know, right? So unfortunately, you're safe there. Luckily, I mean that's a crazy point total, by the way. 31 points. That would make me sick to my stomach. But yeah, 67 is a pretty rough go, unfortunately for you. So yeah, definitely not much room for optimism, but at the same time, you know, see what happens.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to bigger and brighter things. Let's go to week 8, and we'll get into the week 8 pick'ems here. You know what? I mean, and this is going to be the first time in the pod that we're actually going to be past the Thursday night game, so we can actually look at some of these projections. I'm going to go to I'm going to go to one down here. We're going to start. We'll go low to bottom. Let's go Bandits and Tiburon. Bandits. Let me just highlight real quick a little bit about the Bandits. They have been a hot commodity apparently in terms of trade talks in the last 48 hours of this league, maybe longer. Gets the deal done. We won't harp too much in terms of the maybe the delay necessarily of the entire thing, but
Thanks, Mish.
gets it gets yeah, shout out to Mish. Hope you're in the men, bud. But
Love your
anyways,
leg.
yeah, hope yeah, and ends up getting the trade done with Steve. So yeah, we'll obviously see a couple players um kind of get thrown in here in terms of Mostert in this lineup in this projections. The only guy really to highlight that played for Ryan's sake, I guess, is Tiburon. And we'll kind of just run through. I mean, if you have highlights, go ahead. But I'm just going to highlight a couple matchups here. I love Lamar at Arizona. I think that obviously him and Andrews is always kind of the big cog, I think, for most of his points. So that's a nice, juicy matchup, I think, for those guys to kind of keep the trend going, at least hooking up for a touchdown. Um, Ayuk against Cincinnati, we'll see. I think that's going to be an interesting play just because Brock Purdy's not playing. At least I don't think he's playing. I think Sam Darnold's pretty much going to get the start there. So, yeah, Ayuk is going to be an interesting play this week, even though he has been really consistent for him overall in terms of a PPR league. I mean, essentially double digits every time he's played. But I don't that point total could be down a little bit this week. Bijan, I don't even know. This whole situation is such a screwy thing with the coach, how they're using him, how he talks about the offense and just playing a hot hand. Cordarrelle Patterson played last week. Just a really weird. The guy has so much talent. He should be being utilized so much more in that offense, but um, we'll see. I think Damian Pierce has a really nice matchup at Carolina. If he's going to have a good game, this will be the week. Um, and then St. Brown, I think is a just a great play in general. Every single week, I think that's easily his most consistent receiver, and he gets 6 points from Buffalo. So it's gonna be a tight one. I'll let you take away the Bandits and highlight a couple of their matchups, and then we'll go for pickups.
Yeah, for sure. I know he's definitely happy to get back Jamar Chase and Pollard off the bye week, and we are very interested to see how the new trade acquisition plays out. I mean, he gets Raheem Mostert. It's an interesting trade for both parties. I feel like, you know, yeah, as you saw tonight with Kincaid, I mean, he actually has a good game, and it's like, oh man, but at the same time, he has Hawkinson. I mean, if Hawkinson's out to this week, that might come to bite him in the ass a little bit. But at the same time, he makes the trade, and he gets a rock solid guy in Mostert. But it remains to be seen what the rest of the season outlook will be when Achan comes back. I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, it obviously worked. It worked pretty damn well when they were both there, but at the same time, a couple of pretty cake matchups. I mean, they played Denver when Denver still has a pretty crappy defense, but at the same time, they put 70 on him and he has 45. So it's definitely a couple great players on his side. I mean, obviously Ryan's side as well. This is definitely a close call. You see the projections. Projections are obviously neck and neck. I mean, projections obviously don't really mean a whole hell of a lot sometimes, as we've all well seen. But at the same time, it's just like it's definitely I feel like with Chase playing against San Francisco, it's a tough matchup for sure. Um, but at the same time, he is Jamar Chase, and I expect big things out of him. I mean, look at Minnesota. Minnesota like went off a little bit against San Francisco. It was kind of uncharacteristic of San Francisco's defense. We know Minnesota has the talent. I would have expected that a little bit with Justin Jefferson in the roster, not Addison and Osborne and of course Hawkinson. But they just had a little bit of
Yeah.
a down period there. But at the same time, this is definitely a very very close matchup.
Who do you got? Who do you like in this one?
Tough to predict. I mean, I'm actually gonna go with the Bandits in a very close matchup. It's obviously this one's a coin flip for me, but at the same time, just gonna go with the Bandits. Just to bounce back after last week. I feel like some of the guys that didn't have good games are gonna have good games. I mean, I love Calvin Ridley. I know it's Pittsburgh, but they got to find a way to get Calvin Ridley involved. This guy's a stud. He's definitely. I know Christian Kirk's really good. I think Calvin Ridley's better than Christian Kirk. I mean, overall, I think that's Calvin Ridley is the number. It should be the number one, I think. But I know Kirk played with him last year, Trevor Lawrence, and there's a little bit more of a connection. But at the same time, I just feel like they got to get Ridley involved, and the benefits will come for that for him for the Bandit side. So I feel like, and also Kansas City's defense is a great matchup against Denver. You can't really look past that as well. I mean, Buffalo only got him 6. I'm sure he was expecting a little bit more from Buffalo. And for the defensive side of the ball, they could have easily got double figures, but they gave up that touchdown at the end to Mike Evans tonight. So honestly, the Bandits in a coin flip. How are you looking for? What are you looking at this matchup?
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, I think so I have Snyder's projections as well, so we can keep kind of the pick'ems going. We're like I said, we're
Mhm.
we're both at 500. Nothing crazy. We're 12 and 12, 12 and 12. But yeah, we kind of looking at this. I mean, I think Snyder might have projected these before the trade. Kind of looked at my projections was after the trade. However, Mostert's health is kind of in question a little bit. I think he's probably going to play, but
Mhm.
I always think that's kind of a tough matchup, even though they're at home against New England. A division game. So, yeah, I mean, not looking at the whole totality of all the matchups this week, I think this is definitely billing out to be potentially the matchup of the week. Two really good squads, good matchups, good projections. Just based off of those matchups, I'm leaning just a little bit towards Ryan, and Snyder actually picked Ryan, and I'm not siding with just Snyder, but it's such a coin
Yeah,
flip here. I just love I like the Lamar and Andrew stack. And I do think that as
yes.
running backs, if they're going to have good games, it should be this week. I mean, Tennessee's a little bit tougher of a matchup, especially on the road, but they're almost in tank mode, so to speak. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Pierce is playing at Carolina. And then like I said, his receivers are in good shape, and we talked about the quarterback and tight end spot. So both teams look really good. I think that was a good trade for Aaron. Kincaid did score tonight, but I do think that was his expendable piece, and the fact that he gets back Mostert and upgrades from Javante or any of the Carolina backfield as his number 2. Mostert is the number 2 running back right now. So, in a very high powered offense. So good trade, good upgrade, upgrades a starting spot from a bench spot, plays the depth card. And, I will, full disclosure, definitely had crazy trade talks with the Bandits for 48 hours. I know other managers did as well. And then Steve obviously makes the trade with them. So, this is a fun time in fantasy. I mean, it's week 8. Guys are making pushes. Guys are panicking, myself included, and we're looking to either shuffle the team up, make some trades, upgrade, have some fun, or really some guys are trying to make a push and fill in holes and see if they can get to a better roster for the playoffs. And I think the Bandits did that. Um, and yeah, they look like a formidable squad. I think the winner of this is going to feel really really happy coming out of it because I think this is a tough matchup and a coin flip. But I got Tiburon and so does Big Game. So we'll go with that. We'll go to the next matchup, which is have fun deciphering this. Andre and Ship Blizzard
God,
playing
thanks,
head games.
Dre.
Well, at least yeah, at least Rick's got his team involved here, so we can kind of run through it. I guess we're gonna have to share the bench a little bit more than we want. Um, I guess I'll try. I'll. You want to try to decipher his team, or do you want me to try to
Yeah,
do
I mean,
Andy's team?
well, honestly, like I think it's pretty easy to predict who he's gonna play, and this is also based off. We haven't mentioned it yet, but the All Star week, the All Star
Yeah,
game that we the North versus the South.
good point.
The Kings of the North obviously won it last year. Hail to the Kings of the North. Big props for that. But this is a different year, so the South is ready to run supreme. And regardless, this I think obviously, of course, Jalen Hurts is going to be his quarterback. I mean, obviously he's put in DeAndre Swift, and of course Tyreek, Jonathan Taylor, Waller. I mean, some of these
These
guys
guys are
obviously are
hair.
on the roster. Yeah, of course, like Waller, Hill, and Jalen Hurts are on our South All Star roster, so that's very interesting. I mean, he obviously has Godwin in his lineup right now. Tonight, both managers had a player. Diggs got him 16, 9 catches for 70 yards. Unfortunately, we were expecting a little higher of a total for Mr. Diggs, especially the South roster. But
Yeah,
Buffalo finds a way to get the victory. So and Godwin has 17 on the opposite side. Godwin had 17. He had the reception for a touchdown. But so right now it just goes to show this going into it. I mean, I know it doesn't say that on his side yet, but Andre's side, but it is my matchup of the week. This is
yeah.
the matchup of the week to me, just based on record. They're both 5-2. The positioning of both teams,
One
first
versus
and
two.
second. Yeah, 1 versus 2 of both teams in the South region of the North versus South battle. So very interesting. A lot of bragging rights going on. I'm sure for both of them, a little friendly banter. So it's tough to say, but I'm gonna go with Andre. I'm gonna go with Andre in this matchup. I feel like, I mean, I touched on it when I talked about his team in the recap. He's gonna be a tough team, and he always finds a way to, like, you don't think his team's gonna be that great. Sometimes he has some good players, but then he has like some holes in certain spots in his teams in the past. But he always finds a way. Dre is very savvy. He always finds a way to get to the in the play. Of course, in the playoffs, it seems like he's in the playoffs every year, and he finds a way to like put up some big numbers. So I feel like it's always close. I'm always just gonna say it's too close to call, but I feel like, I don't really love DeAndre Hopkins as much with who's throwing him the ball, because if Tannehill doesn't play, and we're not really sure yet about that, Will Levis, Levi's, whatever you want to call him, and the other guy, Malik Willis. I mean, those guys throwing the ball, not really what you want out of your flex spot. Now, things can always change. I mean, we're recording this on Thursday and the Friday. You know, Managers have a tendency to change. I mean, I'm one of them. When I'll change my mind at the last second, right before 1 o'clock. So he could put downs in there. I kind of expect him to do that anyways for some reason. But at the same time, when Dre puts in his official lineup, we know the pieces. We know it's Hurts. We know it's Taylor. We know it's Hill. We obviously know it's Waller as well. So the core of his players are very good, and I think he finds a way to get the victory.
Yeah, I mean it's a good take. I mean, yeah, looking at getting our second matchup and seeing that we have a one versus two, it's hard to not bill this as the matchup of the week. Just on paper, pretty much a wash. Although Diggs being his number one, he probably would hope that he would have got a little bit more, or at least a touchdown. Potentially in that game, but 16 you can't be too upset about. Godwin on the flip side scores, gets 17. Kind of takes from Rick's squad a couple weeks ago. And Godwin has been really, really steady, I think, in the last 2 weeks that he played him. Really the last 3 weeks. So I think the trade went down last week, or maybe the week prior. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I mean, the fact that, Godwin has been in double digits every single week, a really good, consistent player to add to Dre's roster, given all the heavy names you mentioned. Blizzard, you never know. I mean, I think he has Mahomes against Denver. Um, the rest of his matchups are tough, but I think overall, I we're all in agreement. I think Snyder agreed. He picked Dre. I picked Dre. You picked Dre. Really, he's got a kind of an all-star lineup with some of the guys that he has on his team when he puts them all together. And then some of these core pieces like Deontay Johnson, Godwin. He doesn't have a Chan in at all, or even factored in. So it's a crazy lineup, I think, in general, that Andre's put together and hit on. And he's made some pieces in this trade for sure with Swift and Godwin that he can rely on health wise. So I think he's the number one team. He continues to keep it rolling. He's got a full squad with no injuries. Maybe Tyreek Hill. We'll see. Though I think they said he's playing. But yeah, I think it's hard to root against Dre's team just based on top to bottom. And I think Rick's got some tough matchups, and in overall still lacking a little bit in that running back position for him, unfortunately. So yeah, I think we're agreeing there. Let's go to oh man, we're gonna miss my co-host here. We're gonna highlight his matchup. This would have been a very fun one tonight to talk about, unfortunately.
Oh, for sure. Sorry, it's
I
not.
will let you actually take away with Arby's team if you want, real quick, and then I'll go
Yeah,
into
yeah.
Snyder's, and then we'll go on our projections. Like I said, this will be a little unique since we saw what happened tonight.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Definitely a first in the other league podcast history of recording it during the actual game, some of the games. So, obviously, tonight we were there. We had our Arby's front row seat to the game. We were watching the game, Eric Quates, and he could not contain his excitement. He was just loving it, loving life. Josh Allen getting him 33 points to start off the matchup is huge, and but more so even Mr. White, Walter White's brother, Rashad White, gets 17 points. He's the guy that's going to catch those balls at the backfield. That's the crux of his fantasy production is going to come from that. And he didn't really get a lot. I mean, being down most of the game, I mean, that's when they're going to throw more. I mean, as you can see in their wins when they won, he had 17 carries, and 15 carries in the wins and the losses. I mean, he doesn't have as much. I mean, 13's not that far off, but 7 and 9. But if he gets the ball at the backfield in a full point PPR, that's all you can ask for. He's going to get all those catches. So, just running down the rest of his lineup. I mean, obviously, I love you got to love AJ Brown. Every time he steps on the field, you expect big things between him and Jalen Hurts. And of course, Nico Collins has been a pleasant surprise this year. He's been really good. Derrick Henry, of course, King Henry, even though he's not had as great of a season as I'm sure Arby's would like. Just being in the past, being on my team, I know that he's due for a huge game. So I feel like this is probably the game where he's going to have to come up big because the quarterback spot is terrible. They don't have any options there, and I feel like they're going to have to, win it on the ground, ground and pound football. So he's going to have to hope for that. But I mean, great start for him. Of course, Laporta has been a great tight end. His flex spot is obviously. I mean, he's very unsure. I'm sure, like who to put in his flex spot. Without Debo, being ruled out. I mean, there's not the options he has on his bench aren't really that great.
No.
Of course, you have Moss and Juan Robinson or Shaheed. I mean, you're hoping for it's a dart throw. You're hoping for a touchdown, a catch. You're hoping for a rushing touchdown, but you're probably not going to get it. So I mean, hopefully, he gets big production out of Josh Allen. But yeah, maybe Jalen Warren has been. You look at getting 10 points from Jalen Warren. That's all you can ask for. You're not going to get a 20 spot from him. You're going to get maybe a 20 spot from Henry or Brown, but not from him. So I feel like that's big for Arby's. But and on the flip side, I'm shifted over to you for Pain Train, the famous word he likes to use is he probably was tilting very much so with someone on his bench, and who would that be, Mister Sir?
Yeah, I mean it's really tough to with the wide receiver twos on any team. But Gabe Davis especially. I mean, he's really been kind of the story I think of the year for them. In my personal opinion, I mean, did have a couple duds. Don't get me wrong, but I I think he was kind of built to be this type of player, the guy that he's been this year.
Hmm.
Easily, I think his best game. Definitely point total, but in terms of targets, receptions, gets in the end zone again. He has his fifth touchdown of the year, which is a good amount. considering we're 8 weeks through. He scored in 5 of the 8 games. Just tough to play the game of like who you're going to start, right? I mean, he has a ton of wide receiver depth, which is a good thing.
Yep.
But without Jefferson, he needs to play the carousel of like matchups. Wilson's playing at the Giants, Flowers playing at Arizona, and DK is home against Cleveland. So do is it's tough to really figure out if you can slide Gabe Davis on a Thursday night in front of those guys. So I mean, again, hindsight is rough. So the tilt was fully on for sure. Um, but again, we're doing a pod that's a little different. He kind of noted in the text tonight, which I thought the same thing. If you're playing against the quarterback and you have a guy that's a potential to do what Gabe Davis could do, I mean, he scored 23. But realistically, if he does score a touchdown, you get the advantage in a PPR league of having the receiver to Josh Allen. Tough to play a guy on a Thursday night ahead of the guys we just mentioned, but I think you should have played him. He's playing against Josh Allen. You play the receiver against the quarterback if you have any guys that are kind of questionable. I don't think Gabe Davis was a stretch to play, but yeah, hindsight again, unfortunate for him. Yeah, that sucks. And
Yep.
then over to, like you said, the RB side, he hits Allen again, a nice performance from him. Kind of looked a little shaky, scary, a little bit situation with him going into the tent, comes out fine, ends up doing what he does. And Rashad White, I mean, what a player for Arby's to kind of lean on as his wide receiver, or I'm sorry, his running back too. So yeah, I think it's easy now for me to look at it from a different lens. Sny picked himself. This again was prior to tonight's game. I'm going to pick Arby's, unfortunately, because I could see what happened tonight. What's your projection?
Yeah, just based on tonight. I mean, just based on the results of what happened tonight, I feel like it's gonna be tough to come back from that for a first for pain train. I feel bad for him, honestly, but like obviously the Justin Jefferson injury is a killer, and of course Richardson too, but more so Justin Jefferson. I mean, but like at the same time, he has the receiver depth, and yeah, I probably would have played Gabe Davis because like Dre said it in a text, like yeah, like you traded for him, so like I feel like you love this guy a little bit to trade for him. I'm assuming, so you would think he would have put him in his lineup over. Tough to say who you play him over. I mean, maybe Zay Flowers. I know they play Arizona, but like hindsight's 2020. So, but even so, I think like I'm going to give the edge to Arby's as well, just based on what happened tonight and the fact that like I just like his team a little bit more on paper.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, Sny, we miss you, buddy. All right. Let's
Yes,
go
we
into
do.
your matchup. Well, I'll do Beef. And
Mm-hmm.
I will be partial, even though you're my guest host tonight. Because Beef's been on a tear. Yeah, kind
Yes,
of just
sir.
running down quick to look at Beef. I mean, Cousins at Green Bay. I think that's a good matchup. Cousins look good. I mean, I would be relatively surprised if he had a down game against the Pack based on what they've been doing the last couple weeks. And he just looked good at home against at San Fran. So we'll see. Kind of a colder game is what they're anticipating in Lambeau, but we'll see what that matchup looks like. I still think he has a good game. Waddle, I mean, limited. I don't think there's anything crazy there. I know he went out and came back in last week, but I would anticipate he plays. Um, Consistent. So we'll see what that matchup kind of projects. Um, all in all, right now, I mean, kind of just running through everything. It looks like an uphill battle to just get to what your projections are. Just what it's looking like. He's probably going to play Foreman with Ford, unfortunately, going to be out with an injury this week. And then, does he play Foreman or Najee? Maybe I guess that's the other question mark. Kind of scrolling down on the lineup, but he's got to play one of them. Foreman's been good, but Roshan is back and he's practicing, and he will cut into at least the pass catching portion, probably of that offense. Maybe not necessarily, the early down work because I think Foreman did enough to keep that. So, but I do think with Roshan being back, um, he's definitely the guy that was the backup. So I anticipate him cutting into a little bit of that work. And they're playing Sunday night against the Chargers. Not that the Chargers are anything special on defense, but I anticipate some throwing. And kind of just looking at the overall team, he's got McLaurin in there right now over Drake. Drake London from Atlanta. kind of a wash there. Both guys have been really good and consistent. I've been writing off Terry in some talks with Mills and just kind of looking over at that offense, but he's been really good. McLaurin has been kind of a steady cog and been super consistent. I mean, the stat line says what it says. I mean, some really good games, pretty much between 10 and 15, at the most 22 all year. So he's been really good. And we've talked about Drake London on the last show. I unfortunately going to give my projections here. We both have you just based on projections and matchups. In terms of winning, you can give your own projection. You don't have to pick yourself. But I would you run down your matchups, run down your decision making since it's your team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so not a lot of thought into this week's matchup for like starting and sitting guys. Yeah, never was going to play Mike Evans tonight. I feel like a tough match against Buffalo. He does salvage his fantasy night with a reception and in the end zone for a touchdown, but at the same time, makes it a little bit easier to like keep the lineup. I'm pretty sure to keep the lineup that I'm going to have in now. I mean, I'm going to go with Dak, as my quarterback with Brock Purdy, and it was in concussion protocol. Or he did practice on a limited basis today, so that's always interesting just to see like how he would be. But I feel like I'm gonna ride Dak, but it's just like you never know. If Dak has a bad game, do I go with Purdy the next week, or do I look for other options in the free agency pool? Like that's going to be the interesting factor in the rest of the season. So if my team can't maintain its a torrid pace and scoring, quarterback is going to be my Achilles heel, like I said mentioned earlier. So it's just I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this it is what it
Is
is,
this
really.
your
But
is this going to be your first week starting out with Dylan?
it is. It is. It's just tough to ignore the trend that
Volume.
it's been happening with him. I mean, he's been on fire. I don't. I'm always skeptical. I'm a pessimistic person by nature, so like I'm not an optimist. Like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen every week. This pace cannot continue. I don't think Adam Thielen is going to continue this pace. Their team is a train wreck. They're a dumpster fire. They might be the worst team in the league in football, and I mean, I think they are just based on win losses. But you can't just guy has 28, 27, 15, 31, 20. I mean, it's insane. And the
Almost
guy
got
that
to
I
catch it.
drafted, yeah, to be exactly like to be a bench guy. I was like, all right, there's DJ Chark and Thielen when I at the draft. I'll take a flyer on Adam Thielen, a player who's been on my roster in previous seasons. So it's like, you know what? And who knows? Who would have thought I would be starting him in week 8? I mean, and over a guy. I don't have anybody on bye, no injuries. I've been relatively scot free with injuries. I have not had to worry about that at all. So it's very very fortunate, very lucky, and I hope I'm not peaking too early. But I'm going to give the edge to myself just based on the projections, and this is not taking anything away from the Beaver Creek. Nils has put up a little bit of a streak here, and I do like some of the players on his team. I really do. I mean, I'm a fan of Waddle and CD Lamb. I mean, it's tough not to be. I mean, CD had a nice game the week prior against the Chargers by last week, but he just that's what I expected to start the season, and unfortunately, maybe that's why record wise, Nils the numbers could be switched. He could be easily be 4-3 or instead of 3-4. So it's just like a game here or there where your stars don't pop. I feel like CD is going to continue that trend of like having maybe consistently getting his 18 to 20 like he did last year that helped Snyder propel himself to a victory. So like him, Scary Terry, of course, like he might not have a that great of a game against Darius Slay and the Eagles, but it's just it's tough to pick against me and based on the guys they've just been playing well. I mean, I have the most points for and the most points against, so maybe for once the opposing team won't put up 140 fucking points against me. Like I can actually breathe a little easier instead of like down to the wire, worrying on a Monday night. Oh shit, I'm going to lose. And vice versa. So but taking nothing away from the Creek. It's definitely been battling to stay afloat and to stay in the playoff hunt. So interested to see how it's going to go. But I'll take myself.
Yeah, I think there's just too much firepower there. I think we all three projections are unfortunately on you, and I say unfortunately because projections are probably the widest margin right now in the league, just based off the early start. So yeah, I think that's a good wrap up. Here we go. I'm gonna go into the Bastards against Riggs, Steve against Logue. Um, I guess the controversial thought of getting Kincaid thrown up in the lineup here. It's kind of
Mhm.
funny that Logue had to replace it, but not really controversial. Dre was in well before the game. Interesting trade, I think, by Riggs. Kincaid kind of proves that he is definitely a trending tight end. I think we knew that with Knox going to be out in the IR for 4 weeks. Um, but the fact that he scores early. He's had now 2 weeks, 15 plus, I believe. Yeah, 15-5 and 17-5. Is that worth Mostert, who is the number two running back? Time will tell. He's certainly going to hope that Gibbs starts trending up. Him and Snyder can have maybe a separate pod segment where they go up about how their feelings of Gibbs versus Montgomery is, which would be kind of fun for the group to kind of laugh at, knowing how much Snyder loves Montgomery and how high Gibbs went, obviously for Steve's purposes, but he still has Eckler. So I mean, maybe trading his best back for a tight end sounds kind of crazy. We'll see if Javonte Williams does anything for him, in terms of just kind of facilitating that trade. Otherwise, it looks kind of bad on paper, even if Kincaid does perform, to this level. But a nice pop from Steve, regardless of getting that
Mhm.
tight end position filled. Guy gets close to 20 and scores. You can't say that trade looks bad by any means. So good trade. Still a little bit bitter. Would have loved Kincaid on Green Bowl. It was close, but yeah,
Oh yeah.
good movement, good movement. Yeah, love the trades, love the dialogue. On a separate note, we'll get into that after my matchup, but um, yeah, I think Steve does well here. Playing Stroud against Carolina. How can you not play him against the O for team in terms of Carolina?
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
so I think that's a good matchup. Devontae Smith, as you mentioned, I don't know. I mean, I think he's going to definitely have his weeks. Could this be his week? I'm not sure. I can definitely guarantee Addison scores on the Packers because they stink. So I think he'll have a good game. Um, Eckler in a bounce back for sure on Sunday night at home. I think this is definitely a get right for him. Tough week last week against
Mhm.
Kansas City. First week back before that, maybe a slow start. Gibbs, we'll see. I mean, if Montgomery's back, I don't know if those projections of 17 are really going to be realistic, but um, time will tell, and we'll see where that Montgomery injury goes to. But yeah, good projection out of him, and then I'll let you take the bastards away, and then we'll kind of go into pick them here.
Yeah, no, definitely. Nothing, no injuries or really biased to really to note. I mean, I know he lost Connor, so he's just trying. I failed to mention that earlier when we were talking about week 7 matchups. I mean, he has been out, on IR for a few weeks now, and it definitely would be beneficial to him if he was there, of course. I feel like I know he's starting Brian Robinson, but at the same time, it was weird how like Chris Rodriguez, a relative unknown name, he came out of nowhere in that game to like take some touches, and he got outgained by him. So very interesting. I don't know if to read anything. I don't think he lost his job. I mean, I would never say that, but very interesting how they used him. This Rodriguez guy. I knew nothing about this guy before the game, so that's a little worrisome for him. At least for this week's matchup, I feel like Saquon against the Jets. I mean, Saquon has a little bit of, I guess I read that he has a little bit of motivation. I guess the last time he played New York, he had like 12 carries for 13 yards, or was it the other way, 13 for 12? I mean, he had a terrible game. So he has a little bit added motivation. Will it be easy for him to run against that defensive front? I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a little bit, but at the same time, it remains to be seen. So as far as the matchup it goes in general, I mean, I'm just going to say that this is a tough one too. I mean, it's tough to call. I mean, I don't really, yeah, the projections are a little high on some of these players. I don't really go by projections what they say when I make my picks in general. And obviously it's definitely the first week of me doing this, but I feel like I'm just a slight edge I'm going to give to Steve just to get to 500. It's just is not, this could go either way, but I'm not really in love with some of the guys on Logue's team, unfortunately. But I feel like the Chargers might bounce back, but it might be a bounce back for Eckler and not for Justin Herbert. I feel like Herbert will get his points, but I feel like this is a game where Eckler is going to hit that 20 point, 25 point plateau. He has to. I mean, you got to think that it's going to be him. It's going to be his show. And the Kincaid, it's always like it's just a little bit different because Kincaid has 17. I don't think we expected 17 from Dalton Kincaid. I mean, honestly. So, it remains to be seen what everyone else can do. But Addison will stay. I think Addison stays hot against Green Bay because they're just a pathetic defense. Smith had I think nine catches against Washington last time they played earlier this year. So I feel like it's a get right bounce back spot for Steve. I mean, it's just like it's an up and down league. It's a week to week league, so it's like even you could have 70 points or 60 points in some cases one week, and the next week you pop off for 115, 120. So I'm going to give a slight edge to the Rigs here.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's a very close matchup again. Easier for us to project maybe with Kincaid's points tonight on the Thursday night, but I do think in general, um, this is I wouldn't say a must win, but it would be a huge win for Steve, based on the trade talk, making the trade, upgrading. We'll see if that Mostert trade bites him. It's going to be, very telling this week, and maybe in the next couple weeks moving forward. But at 3-4, just sitting on the outside of the top six. The Bastards are in six at 4-3. This is a really, really close matchup. Very kind of middle of the season, obviously, but um, could be a big win for the Bastards to get to 5-3, and would be kind of a tough loss for Steve, and vice versa. I mean, it gets both these managers to 4-4 if Steve gets the win, and kind of locked into that 6 through 8 spot, or 6 through 9 spot, if you want to call it, of the league right now. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Steve. So is Snyder. So we're 3 for 3 at least in terms of that. Let's go to the last matchup.
Yes, here we go.
Save the worst for last, apparently. Yeah, so I guess this is going to bill itself probably as maybe the two worst teams trending in the league right now. Colombian White at 2-5. We know where I'm at 1-6. Not the greatest start to the week. Playing James Cook to start it out. That's the only guy that played. Why don't you take it away with Phil, and I'll run down mine real quick before we pick them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like this for you, this is do or die. I mean, I feel like a loss here by Green Bull to go to 1-7. I don't think you're going to come back from this. Like to get. I mean, I'm not talking about the playoffs, but like to get out of the cellar, so to speak, of like being last place and having to, have that PowerPoint presentation. So obviously you're my brother and I love you, but that's a realistic realistic take on things. You know what I mean? So like as far as as far as the matchup goes, and Phil's side, I mean, he really needs Kenny Walker to play, but as we see, he's not practicing, and I feel like that's a big miss. Now, if he's not going to play, maybe he makes a bid for Charbonnet, or maybe he just slides in, somebody else in there. But I don't really feel like you want to play Royce Freeman or Jerick McKinnon. So I feel like looks like he has an empty spot in his roster. So I mean, they're on waivers. Maybe when we see the next roster move will be him picking them up just in case that Walker misses time. And I'm not saying he's going to do anything. I feel like you're not going to replace Walker's production. So, as far as the rest of his lineup goes, Kelsey, we've already talked about him and how much of a beast he is. Number one tight end, and I expect the same thing from him in that game against Denver. Sutton and his flex. I mean, he's actually been consistent. I mean, I love Cortland Sutton in general, so I feel like he's been a consistent piece. I mean, only one game with 2 points, but every other game has been double figures, as you see there. So I mean, he's an important piece of his team, and it all comes down to what Devontae Adams, of course, what he does, but it's also Russell Wilson. I mean, he's going with Russell Wilson as his quarterback against Kansas City. I don't. Despite the fact that maybe he hooks up with Sutton a couple of times, I don't really expect a big game from Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson is going to struggle against Kansas City. Kansas City has a good defense. Now, they are playing home, But last week they played at home, and against Green Bay's pathetic defense, and they only had 15 fantasy points. So, not a long term option, I think, for for Russell Wilson to be your fantasy quarterback. But it is what it is. He's got Kyler sitting there on the pup list, and who knows how he's going to be when he does come back. But it's a win now game for both managers, as you know, and it's just going to be it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough matchup here. But at the same time, I'm going to go with you just because I know you're desperate for a victory. You're desperate for a win. And I feel like this is it. This is do or die. And I hope you got to get your team in gear here. I'll give them a little pep talk to say, listen, Green Bowl cannot finish last place. We got to get some victories here. And I know James Cook only got you 8 tonight, and that's 67 rushing yards isn't bad per se, but like you need touchdowns. You need touchdowns. He's not getting the volume as a pass catcher. He didn't get a touchdown for you, and I don't know if you're going to make a move for a tight end. I'm assuming you are. So obviously not going to reveal your plans here, but at the same time, Komet getting a 0 last week was not ideal for you. But at the same time, just looking at the other end of the spectrum, if without Walker, and we're starting Russell Wilson, and I think with Burrow and Higgins, it's just a tough matchup at San Francisco. That's the only thing that kind of
Mhm.
scares me. Even though you
Sure.
have, it's frustrating for you because you have good names like big name guys like Jacobs. You have T Higgins, Burrow, Cup. Obviously Aaron Jones on your bench, and just like they haven't performed very very well. And obviously your best player probably has been Pacheco. For a totality of the season, I'm not saying he's better than Cooper Cup. He's not better than Cooper Cup, but Puka being there takes away, instead of getting 15 targets before like he would in his fucking prime. He's getting maybe 7, 8. I mean, not as many. So he's not going to get freaking maybe 12 catches for 150 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he could. I'm not saying he can't, but same thing. They play at Dallas. I mean, just bad, tough matchups. So it's almost like I'm talking myself out of picking you in this matchup, but just because I know you're desperate for a win and I'm trying to boost your morale, I'm going to give you the victory. Green Bowl and a squeaker, but he's gonna get the victory.
Yeah, so I mean, Snyder picked me as well. I picked against myself, which I feel like I probably
Ooh.
I after tonight is really what swayed me. I did have myself written down at first, um, but I just think, I mean, it's going to be a tight one. So maybe people are going to say I'm trying to put the reverse jinx on like I normally try to do, but I'm not. I just think my team stinks. I just can't get it right. I mean, I played James Cook tonight, which I, don't play him last week. He scores 19. Play him this week, he scores 8. And looks really, again, no goal line work, nothing. It's very, very frustrating as a as owner and a guy that we see him, have some nice short, bursts and a couple of runs tonight where you're like, how is that guy not getting the run? Um, so very frustrating in terms of that, and just in general, trying to navigate a team that's pretty broken, we'll say in general. So I'm gonna go with Colombian White, but just kind of running down the matchups, I agree. I mean, I gotta play Burrow if I'm gonna play Higgins, which I'm going to this week, just because if they score, it's 12. So why not? Um, and coming off the bye week, I think Higgins hopefully is healthy. So we'll kind of see where things kind of lie there. But you got to play your guns, right? I just feel like go out with the guys. Um,
Yeah, you have
yeah,
to.
you're right. Cup against Dallas is a tough matchup for sure. But you got to go with your studs. I think he might be due for a bounce back week. At Dallas is definitely a tough matchup for sure with that front coming at Matt Stafford. And I think he had a similar defensive front with Pittsburgh. And Cooper Cup didn't do as well as Nakua did. So a little
Yeah.
concerning
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of matchups. Like you mentioned, really tough for you to say that Isaiah Pacheco is your most consistent or best player. But he clearly has been. So we'll see what we get. But I think a smash matchup against Denver. They'll be up. They'll be probably trying to run the clock out. So you might not get all the run, but as we saw last week, he kind of scored that late touchdown. So I think a touchdown hopefully is in that mark of 13 in terms of projection. could get higher than that if he scores and he puts up a decent amount of yards. So, like you mentioned, Komet's been kind of an eyesore in the lineup for the last 2 weeks without Fields. Going to go a third week now without Fields for a full game, we'll say. So yeah, tough. Guy that was trending pretty well for a couple weeks and actually kind of hopped himself into that top 5, top 10 tight end role. Just unfortunate. But yeah, there's not a lot of stuff out there. It's a pretty barren wasteland of tight ends. Jacobs,
Yes.
very, very tough matchup, although it's a primetime game at Detroit. Detroit's got a great defense, as we mentioned on numerous pods, especially defensive fronts. My hope is that he gets a couple catches and a couple touches that way. Jimmy G is expected to play, so they should at least be a full offense. He hasn't really necessarily been the guy that I anticipated keeping in the 6th round, especially over Tyreek Hill in the second. So,
Yeah.
tough go. We'll see what Jones does. Hard for me to say that I would slot Jones in just based on the disappointment that I've had with him over the last 2 weeks. So yeah, it's just not a great have a full team, but just not great matchups. And then Cook kind of only not even getting in double digits tonight. Is tough to see. So yeah, I mean he doesn't have a great, maybe necessarily a great lineup and great matchup, especially if Walker's out. Kind of banking on Wilson and Sutton against KC could be a tough one, just based on his quarterback lie, but hard to hard to roll with Green Bull just based on the trend. So I'm going to vote against myself. So that's the matchups. We'll kind of see where everything lies after week 8. Some really important ones. I mean, Phil and I for sure for the cellar is a huge matchup. This is the 3rd time in a row that I've played a team that is down near the cellar, we'll say. Lost to Nils, lost to Snyder last week. Now Phil. So yeah, if there's ever a must win, I've been saying it for a couple weeks. This is the must win for Green Bull to at least hopefully fight to not wear the dress and create a PowerPoint presentation on how bad my team is. So we'll see. And then we have the 1 versus 2. So we have 2 opposite ends of the spectrum this week, which is cool. I'm gonna fire away just at the overall power ranking so we can get this done quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I mean, just kind of looking at it, I'm going to run through and you agree, and then we'll just go through kind of quickly here. We already went through rosters. Me and Snyder have Dre as number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
agree?
I actually do agree. I wrote that down. I had Dre at 1. Just I talked him up in the podcast here, and I just feel like like those guys, those big guys that he has with Hurts and Tyreek, those 2 guys, of course. I mean, top QB, top receiver. I'll give the edge to him. I don't think Taylor and Swift are like our top 5 running backs, but they're together and with the Chan coming back. I mean, I think at the moment, just based on record and based on those guys there, I gave him a number 1 as well.
Here's your 2.
I actually I actually took myself at number 2.
Instead of
I wasn't
Snyder
gonna put
not.
myself. Oh wow, that's I did not expect to hear that. Honestly,
Yep.
I'm a very like I said, pessimistic person, and I'm like, I don't think my team can keep this up. But I mean, there's no arguing with most points and the fact that a 4-3, I could easily be 5-2 as well. 1 catch from Keenan Allen, and like I said, I beat the Bandits. So it's just like it happens. I mean, things happen like that, and I got destroyed by by Arby's, but just based on like him having a higher score. So it's just like I feel like my team, is trending in the right direction. Can't really complain about where my team is right now. I just like this. Hope they can continue it. I mean, McCaffrey, I have the best. I mean, I think I have the best player in the league, and Christian McCaffrey on my team, and he's in the midst of a crazy streak. Let's hope he keeps it up. And he's playing he's getting all the touches. I mean, I can't believe he was almost from not playing, and he dodged the bullet with the oblique injury to like getting every snap. Like it's insane. So like having him on my team is great. I'm glad I picked him, and ETN has been great. And I hope he can keep it up too, because he's a relatively newer player to the league. I'm not saying like he's not like a 5-year veteran who's been doing this for five straight years of like having great fantasy numbers. Like, but I'm glad it's panning out for me. And then of course the picks that the draft picks that I didn't think were going to pan out, Thielen and Evans, like, on my bench. And, I'm starting Brees, but I could easily start DJ Moore when I'm maybe Bajan as a quarterback. No, but like when Fields comes back, slotting him in there. So like, it's the only thing is like when you have an embarrassment of riches, sometimes like you don't know what to do with it. And with a single flex, you're like, oh crap, I might start somebody, and I might have a guy score 25 on my bench, and that's the only caveat of like having a great team, but having guys on your bench too that you're like, oh shit, I really wish I didn't start that guy because I have a
Sure.
30 spot on my bench. So, but yeah, I run myself into just but it could go either way. I think with the teams below us, as you can
But we
pick
might
your
we
next team.
might yeah, we might differ here. I mean, Snyder has Tiburon at 3. Um, I've shipped Blizzard. So I think this is tough. I mean, they're both fairly competitive teams. Tiburon might have a little bit better of a roster just from top to bottom with his running backs. Um, and certainly with that stack, although Ship Blizzard has Mahomes. So I give the slight
Mm.
edge. I gave the slight edge to Rick. Who's your 3-4?
Yeah, 3-4 is I think I'm with you as well. I ship Blizzard at 3 and Ryan at 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so shocked about Puka Nakua. I really am. I'm like, I mean, it's like kind of like, oh, it's infuriating. Why didn't I think of this guy like before the draft started? Or like, why didn't I pick up this guy? Like who would have thought this was going to happen? I mean, nobody did. And if Cooper Cup doesn't get hurt, does this guy get those touches? So like, that's a big thing. Going into the season, I wouldn't say he was the number. He wouldn't have been in the top 3 in my power rankings when the draft started because I don't think I would have predicted that. But yeah, you can't argue with the 2 and 4
4.
receivers at the moment. You know what I mean? 2 with Diggs, 4 with Nakua. So it's like, yeah, his weak spot at the moment is running back because of the Kieran Williams injury. But before he got hurt, Kieran Williams, that's probably one of the reasons. Also, another reason why his record is 5-2. I mean,
Yep.
another relatively unknown guy. The Akers thing, no one predicted that. We thought Akers was the guy. He ends up not being the guy. Kieran Williams does
Well, that
great.
was a trade.
Yes.
Yeah, let's note
Yeah,
that. I
yeah,
mean, that was the
yeah,
trade,
yeah, yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. True. That is true. Yeah. So, but if we're yeah, exactly. But like he ends up getting him in the trade and whatnot. But it gives up Swift. But at the same time, like I don't think he really, he didn't lose much. Unfortunately, with the injury, it doesn't look that great. But at the same time, like he was playing great. So I just feel like it's tough to predict. You know, to switch either between 3 and 4 there. But like, yeah, it's very
I agree.
close. It's with points and with the record. I mean, they have the same record. So
So
not
five,
to take away from them.
I got Arby's. I think you might be in agreement there, maybe.
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
do. I do. Yeah, nothing changes for me. Wow,
Yeah,
Arby's.
same with Snyder. So we pretty quick. We could run this down pretty quick. I mean, we talked about the teams most. I mean, foremost these
Yeah.
guys.
Mm.
Um, I got Bandits at 6 and Bastards at 7. So does Snyder. Um, so I mean, I think they were those top 7. I've kind of been clear cut. Who do you have at 6 and 7? We'll just touch on the names. We don't have to go on
It,
the rosters.
it is funny. I mean, I'm not saying this because I have it written down too. I'll show you guys, but you probably can't see it. But I do have the same thing.
Yeah.
I have Bandits at 6, just based on I like this roster going into the season, and I like it even more now. And then of course Logan at 7. Yeah, so
Mm.
I'm in agreement with you there. And then
8
yeah, I got
rigs.
Riggs at 8. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So I think basically how it pans out the rest of the way is similar to what everyone has. I mean, I have Riggs, Beeve, White, Train, and Greenbull. And I think that's exactly how um Sny has it. I'm assuming that's probably how you have it just based on record and teams. Um
Yeah,
I
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so I think it's been an interesting development over the last couple of weeks of just kind of talking about these upper echelons teams, the top 4, maybe the top 5, maybe the top 2 or 3, however you want to divvy it up. And then I think the bottom has kind of unfortunately relatively been set with the bottom 4. Now Beeve is certainly creeping after a 2 win streak. Colombian White has lost 3 in a row. I've lost 3 in a row, so we kind of both knocked ourselves down a little bit. Train gets back on the board, I guess, if you want to call it that, at 2 and 5. He's got to tread a little bit water and maybe get one of his heavy hitters, obviously with Jefferson back on board. So it's going to be very interesting on the bottom 3 what happens, especially with me and White this week, in in terms of how that changes if the roster, if teams get if I get 2-6, he gets 2-6, Paint Train's at 2-6. Could be an interesting development there at the bottom, but should be interesting at the top as well. Like I said, I mean, we got 3-5-2 teams. Two of them playing each other, like we mentioned. It's gonna be a really good week of fantasy football. Really looking forward to kind of seeing where everything shakes loose. And yeah, like you mentioned, All-Star Week, kind of a fun little niche that we put in last year. So we'll have a little bit of a recap between hopefully my original co-host. You did an amazing job. Thanks for filling in again, man. Really fun that we can at least get something out there to the league and up there. A little bit of a different take with a Thursday night recording, but yeah, it was fun. Like the projections, like where we're at. It'll be interesting to see where the league gets to, top and bottom next week, I should say. And who has the bragging rights? I mean, the North could technically be 2 up, and sitting on some cash. They had a good outing from Josh Allen tonight. A little subdue from Diggs, but not bad. So we'll see. It'll be fun.
Yeah, no, the South. What's dead may never die. So the South is not going to lose. I have faith in us, and I mean a little Game of Thrones call back there. But at the same time, like let's hope for the best for the South, and let's hope for a good week of football. Let's avoid any major injuries from any of our teams. And this has been a blast. I've obviously enjoyed watching it from afar, listening, and I always watch every week, obviously. So it's great to finally to be on the very famous Other League podcast. Great time with you as always. I'm looking forward to you guys next week. Regularly scheduled programming with Snide back. Oh, Snide, we miss you. The audience obviously misses you as well. I hope I did a good job filling in for you. And yeah, definitely looking forward to be back on soon.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate you coming on. I hope everyone has a good week 8, and we'll be back next week.
Peace. Have a good one.
All right, brother. Talk to you later.